Convergence of Worlds. Captain Chen's unexpected arrival created a ripple of luminescent whispers among the gathered Navari. She approached the central platform with measured steps, her Earth Alliance uniform a stark contrast to the flowing attire of the Crystal Moon's inhabitants. "Voss, your transmissions about the soul tether intrigued our xenobiologists," Chen explained, her pragmatic tone at odds with the chamber's solemnity. "We've been consulting with our best minds while waiting out the storms." She activated a holographic display from her wrist device. "The bond you formed has implications beyond personal connection. It represents the first successful biological interface between human and Navari physiology." Elder Serena stepped forward, her ancient eyes evaluating the Earth Captain. "You speak of science, but this is a matter of spirits and essences." "Perhaps they're not as separate as we think," Chen replied. "Our analysis suggests the tether operates on principles we've only theorized, quantum entanglement at a biological level, creating a sustainable bridge between two distinct life forms." Hope flared through Alien's consciousness, echoing immediately in Lyra's. "Are you saying there's another option?" he asked. Chen nodded. "Earth Alliance is proposing a diplomatic mission to Nevereth, our first formal contact with your people," she said, addressing the Navari elders. "We need an ambassador who understands both worlds, literally." Understanding dawned on Alien. "You want me to stay?" "As our permanent liaison to Nevereth, with regular transport between here and our new outpost on the sister moon, short separations that wouldn't destabilize your connection." The council chamber erupted in discussion, luminescence fluctuating with the intensity of debate. Through their bond, Alien felt Lyra's cautious optimism battling with ingrained skepticism. "This proposal requires consideration," Elder Serena announced finally. "We will convene privately." As the elders withdrew for deliberation, Alien and Lyra found themselves alone in an antechamber, their constellation marks pulsing with shared anticipation. "Do you think it could work?" Lyra asked, her silver eyes searching his. "Living between worlds?" Alien took her luminescent hands in his. "I think we've already proven impossible things are possible." Through their connection, he sent her images of what their future might hold, bringing Earth's knowledge to Nevereth and Navari wisdom back to his people, building a bridge not just between two beings, but two civilizations. The elders' deliberation lasted until dawn. When they emerged, Elder Serena's expression was solemn, but her luminescence bright. "The council has decided," she announced. "We accept this proposal with conditions. The soul tether must be completed, not left in its vulnerable intermediate state. And Lyra Thalis must hold equal diplomatic status with Alien Voss in all negotiations between our worlds." Captain Chen nodded. "Acceptable terms. Earth Alliance values balanced representation." The ceremony to complete the soul tether took place as Nevereth's crystalline landscape glittered in the light of the emerging sun. Unlike the desperate energy of the nearly performed severance, this ritual flowed with harmonious purpose. Alien and Lyra stood at the center of the settlement's grand pavilion, surrounded by both Navari elders and the Earth Alliance crew. Their hands joined as Elder Serena bound them with a cord woven from both Navari crystal fibers and earth-forged metal, symbolic of their unprecedented union. "The covenant of eternal resonance is not entered lightly," Elder Serena intoned. "Two frequencies, distinct yet harmonious, choosing to vibrate as one while maintaining their unique tones." As ancient Navari words washed over them, Alien felt the soul tether shifting, deepening. The constellation pattern on his arm expanded, flowing like liquid light until it formed a complete circuit with Lyra's matching mark. Where before their emotions had flowed between them in waves, now they established a balanced current, a constant awareness that neither overwhelmed nor diminished their individuality. "I choose this," Alien whispered, the Navari words coming naturally to him now. "As do I," Lyra responded in perfect English, knowledge transferring effortlessly between them. Their kiss sealed the covenant, and the assembled witnesses, human and Navari alike, witnessed the luminescence that briefly enveloped them both, alien skin temporarily sharing in Lyra's natural glow. The days that followed marked the beginning of a new chapter for both worlds. Earth Alliance established their outpost on Neverith's surface rather than the sister moon, with Alien and Lyra overseeing the cultural and scientific exchange. Together, they navigated the complex dance of introducing two vastly different civilizations, Lyra helping humans understand the living consciousness of Neverith, and Alien helping the Navari contextualize human innovation and adaptability. Their dwelling, constructed at the boundary between the Navari settlement and the Earth outpost, embodied their bridge-building purpose. Crystal and steel, luminescence and electric light, two design philosophies blending into something entirely new. One evening, 3 months after the Covenant ceremony, they stood on their balcony watching traders from both worlds exchange goods and knowledge in the market below. "I never imagined this outcome when I pulled you from your crashed vessel," Lyra mused, her silver hair catching the light of the setting sun. Alien wrapped his arms around her from behind, their constellation marks aligning perfectly. "Honestly, I was just hoping to survive the crash. And now? Now I'm hoping we've started something that will outlast us both." Through their bond, he shared his vision of future generations, children of two worlds, perhaps someday bearing constellation marks of their own. Lyra turned in his embrace, her luminescence brightening with emotion. The elders believe the soul tether chooses those who can carry the weight of destiny. "Lucky us," Alien murmured against her lips. As they kissed, their perfectly matched constellation patterns pulsed with shared joy. Two beings from distant worlds who had found in each other not just love, but purpose. Their unique connection had become the foundation for something greater than themselves, a bridge across the stars, proving that even the vast emptiness of space could not prevent hearts from finding their cosmic counterparts. In the market below, a human trader laughed with a Navari artisan as they exchanged stories along with goods. Above, the gas giant Neverith began its stately rise into the evening sky, illuminating the crystalline landscape in gold and amber hues. Two worlds, once separate, now connected by an unexpected crash landing and the ancient magic of a bond that transcended the boundaries of species and space. The soul tether between Alien and Lyra hummed with contentment, no longer a desperate survival measure or a burden of impossible choice, but the living embodiment of what becomes possible when fear gives way to trust, and when two beings choose, against all odds, to build something new together.
The storm had finally passed. Niall Ferris stood in the entrance of the greenhouse dome, surveying the damage. The research station's protective shields had held against the meteorite shower, but the atmospheric disturbances had knocked out communications for the 3rd time this month. Not that he minded the isolation. It gave him more time with his plants and his 6-year-old son, Theo. "Dad, come quick!" Theo's voice echoed through the hydroponics section. "There's a lady sleeping in the ferns." Niall's heart raced as he sprinted past rows of experimental crops. The Proxima Centauri outpost wasn't supposed to have visitors, especially not unannounced ones during a meteor storm. He found Theo standing beside the rare specimen area, pointing at a crumpled form nestled among the broad-leafed native ferns. She wasn't human, that much was immediately clear. Her skin had a faint silvery sheen that caught the artificial light, and distinctive markings traced elegant patterns along her temples and down her arms. Her eyes, when they fluttered open at his approach, were deep violet with no visible whites. "Water," she whispered, her voice melodic despite its weakness. Niall hesitated only a moment before grabbing his canteen. "Theo, go to the supply cabinet and bring the emergency medical kit," he instructed calmly, though his mind raced with questions. The visitor drank gratefully, her fingers, 5 of them, just like his own, trembling slightly around the container. "My name is Vela," she said after drinking, her accent giving human words an unusual cadence. My shuttle was caught in the debris field. I ejected, and your structure was the only shelter visible. I'm Niall. This is my research station. He knelt beside her, medical scanner in hand. Are you injured? Nothing critical, Vela answered, attempting to sit up. My people heal quickly. I need shelter until my embassy can establish contact. Embassy? So she was a diplomat, not an explorer or scientist like most visitors to this sector. You can stay here, Niall found himself offering, surprising even himself with the immediacy of his response. Communications are down, but they should be restored within a few days. Theo returned with the medical kit and a curious expression. Are you an alien lady? He asked without preamble. A small smile touched Vela's lips. I suppose I am, from your perspective. On my world, you would be the aliens. Dad says perspective is important in understanding other species. That's why he studies plants from everywhere. Your father seems wise, Vela said, her violet eyes meeting Niall's brown ones with an intensity that made him look away. As darkness fell outside the dome, Niall prepared a spare room for their unexpected guest. He hadn't shared his living quarters with anyone since Anna's death 3 years ago. Something about Vela's presence made the station feel different, less like a scientific outpost and more like a home again. Thank you for your kindness, Vela said softly as he showed her the accommodation. My people value hospitality highly. This debt will not be forgotten. No debt, just basic decency. But as Niall lay awake that night, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of another adult moving about his station, he couldn't deny the strange feeling of anticipation growing within him. For the first time in years, tomorrow seemed full of possibilities rather than just more research. Growing bonds. Mornings at the research station followed a predictable routine until Vela arrived. Now, 3 weeks into her stay, Niall found himself waking earlier, anticipating the sight of her tending to the eastern section of the greenhouse, where the most delicate specimens grew. The rhythm of your earth plants differs from ours, Vela explained, as Niall joined her among the rows of experimental crops. On Lycetea, our flora responds to 3 moons and varying gravitational pulls. These specimens seem almost lonely in comparison. Niall watched her gentle movements as she measured growth patterns. Do you miss it, your homeworld? A shadow crossed her features. I've spent more time among the stars than on my homeworld these past years. After my bondmate Terran was lost during the border conflict, diplomatic service became my refuge. The mention of her lost partner created a moment of shared understanding between them. That evening, after Theo had gone to bed, Niall showed her the preserved specimen of the rare flower that had brought him and Anna together during their university days. Anna loved the resilience of adaptive plants, he said, his voice soft with memory. She used to joke that humans could learn from their ability to thrive in unlikely places. Your Anna was wise, Vela said, her violet eyes reflecting the low light of the lab. My people believe that grief carves channels within us that can later be filled with new understanding. And have yours filled? Niall asked, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. I'm beginning to think they might, she answered, her 5-fingered hand hesitantly reaching toward his before drawing back. The station's communication system sputtered back to life the next day. Niall should have reported Vela's presence immediately, but found himself delaying the transmission. Instead, he took her and Theo to the western ridge, where the indigenous crystal formations caught the light of the setting sun. Look, Vela, Theo exclaimed, his small hand holding hers without hesitation. They change colors like your eyes do when you're happy. Niall watched his son guiding their visitor with the ease of acceptance of childhood, pointing out the hidden patterns in the crystals. Something warm unfurled in his chest as Vela knelt beside Theo, her silver-sheened skin contrasting with his sun-freckled complexion.
On Lysithea, we have similar formations, she told the boy. Our children create memory maps with them, placing a crystal for each important moment in their lives. Can we make one? Theo asked eagerly. The three of them spent the afternoon arranging a small circle of crystals, each representing a story they shared. Niall contributed tales of Earth and his research journeys, while Vela described the floating cities of her world and the ceremonial gardens where diplomats negotiated peace. As twilight descended, Niall realized with startling clarity that his research station had transformed. The sterile workplace that had been his escape after Anna's death now pulsed with new life. In Vela's presence, both he and Theo were awakening from a long dormancy. That night, after Theo's bedtime story, an improvised tale from Vela about cosmic explorers, Niall walked her back to her quarters. "Your son has the soul of a diplomat," she said, lingering in the doorway. "He builds bridges without even trying." "He's been alone too much. It's good to see him connect with someone new." "Only Theo?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Instead of answering, Niall found himself leaning forward, hesitantly pressing his lips to hers in a kiss that bridged worlds. Her skin felt warmer than he expected, slightly textured against his palms as his hands gently framed her face. When they parted, the violet of her eyes had deepened to the color of Earth's twilight sky. "I should report your presence to the outpost authorities," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Perhaps tomorrow," she replied, her fingers intertwining with his. Tomorrow came, but the report remained unsent.
Cultural exchanges. The research station's quarterly inspection wasn't due for another month, which made the shuttle's arrival all the more concerning. Niall watched from the observatory dome as the government vessel settled on the landing pad, its official markings gleaming in the morning light. "They've come about the meteor anomalies," Administrator Chen announced as she strode into the main laboratory where Niall was working, "and to check on your progress with the adaptive crop program." Her eyes narrowed as she noticed the modifications to several experimental protocols. "You've implemented some interesting changes." "Recent storm patterns required adjustments," Niall explained, conscious of Vela hidden in the residential section with Theo. "The indigenous species provided insight into more resilient hybridization methods." Chen nodded, though suspicion lingered in her expression. "And the unusual energy signature we detected. Our sensors picked up technology that doesn't match your registered equipment." Niall's mind raced. Vela's emergency beacon, which she'd activated periodically to signal her people, would have created precisely such an anomaly. "I've been testing some alternative growth stimulation patterns," he improvised. "The results weren't consistent enough to report officially yet." Chen seemed satisfied, but as she and her team settled in for what would clearly be an extended inspection, Niall knew their precarious arrangement was at risk. That evening, he found Vela in the communication hub, her fingers dancing across the interface with practiced precision. "I've modified my signal pattern," she explained without looking up. "It will appear as normal research transmissions to your people's monitoring systems." "How long have you known they were tracking your beacon?" Niall asked. "Since the beginning." "I am not merely a diplomat, Niall. I am the daughter of Lysithia's High Consulate. My position here, unannounced and unregulated, could complicate the ongoing treaty negotiations." The revelation stunned him. "Your royalty?" Her laugh was musical. "Nothing so dramatic. My position is more like what you would call a senior ambassador. My disappearance has likely caused considerable concern." "Then why haven't you used our communication system to contact your people directly?" Vela's expression softened as she looked at him. "Because each day here has been healing. With you and Theo, I've remembered parts of myself I thought lost with Terran." That night, while Chen's team conducted nocturnal atmospheric readings, Vela slipped into Niall's quarters. Their conversation, beginning with whispered contingency plans, gradually transformed into more personal exchanges. On Lysithia,
Intimacy is a language of subtle gestures. Vela's fingers traced patterns on his palm that sent unexpected sensations coursing through him. The joining of bodies follows the joining of minds. Niall caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. "And have our minds joined?" "More completely than you realize," she whispered. Their exploration of each other was both familiar and utterly foreign, human warmth meeting the cool luminescence of her skin, creating patterns of light in the darkness of his room. Her touch was tentative at first, then increasingly confident as she learned the responses of his body. Niall discovered the sensitive markings along her spine, how they deepened in color with her pleasure. "Your people's ways of connection are beautifully direct," she gasped as they moved together, finding rhythm despite their differences. Afterwards, lying in the strange new intimacy between them, Niall confessed his fears. "When Chen leaves, I should officially report your presence. You deserve proper diplomatic protocols, not hiding in a research station." Vela's expression grew troubled. "Once I enter your world's official channels, our time together becomes something else entirely. Politics will replace this." Her hand gestured between them. Before Niall could respond, the station's alert system pulsed with an incoming transmission, directed not to Earth's network, but to a frequency he'd never seen before. "That's from Lysithia," Vela said, sitting up abruptly.
Inevitable choices. The Lithisian signal pulsed with increasing urgency through the night, its distinctive pattern bypassing Earth's communication protocols. By morning, Niall knew they could no longer maintain their delicate secret. The decision was made for them when Administrator Chen burst into the greenhouse, her face tight with barely contained anger. "Care to explain why we're receiving diplomatic inquiries about an unregistered alien dignitary supposedly sheltering at your station?" she demanded, waving a tablet displaying official transmissions. "The Lithisian consulate claims their first emissary is here, an emissary whose ship reportedly malfunctioned near our sector 6 weeks ago." Vela emerged from behind the tall native ferns, her posture shifting into something more formal than Niall had ever witnessed. Even dressed in the simple station attire he had provided, she suddenly emanated authority. "Administrator Chen," she said, her voice carrying a melodic resonance that hadn't been present before. "I am Vela Natarik, first emissary to the Lithisian High Consulate. I offer apologies for the irregular nature of my presence." Chen's expression cycled rapidly through shock, disbelief, and calculation. "Do you realize the diplomatic incident this represents? We have protocols for first contact scenarios." "This is hardly first contact," Niall interjected. "Earth and Lithisia have maintained trade relations for over a decade." "Relations that are now in jeopardy," Chen snapped. "The Lithisian delegation is threatening to withdraw from next month's resource treaty unless their emissary is returned immediately." Vela's violet eyes clouded. "My people are protective, especially given recent border tensions." Within hours, the research station transformed into an impromptu diplomatic outpost. Communications officers established direct links with both Earth's Central Command and the approaching Lithisian vessel. Niall found himself relegated to observer status in his own home, as Vela was swept into official protocols and debriefings. Theo watched with confused eyes as uniformed personnel documented every aspect of Vela's stay. "Are they taking her away?" he asked his father during a rare moment alone. Niall couldn't bring himself to lie. "Her people need her, buddy. She has important responsibilities." "But we need her too," Theo insisted with a child's simple logic. "She makes the plants happier, and you smile more." That evening, Niall found Vela alone on the observation deck, her silver-sheened face reflecting the starlight as she gazed toward the coordinates where her retrieval ship would soon appear. "I've been ordered to join the diplomatic team at Central Command," he told her, keeping his distance despite every instinct urging him closer. "They want a complete report on my physium biology based on my observations." "Observations," she repeated with a sad smile. "Is that what we're calling it now?" The professional facade between them cracked. In 3 strides, Niall crossed the distance, pulling her into his arms with an urgency that surprised them both.
Her body melted against his, her fingers, those 5 familiar digits he had memorized with his lips, gripping his shoulders. "Come with me," he whispered against her temple. "You and Theo. The botanical research program has outposts throughout the sector. We could request assignment to the buffer zone between territories." Vila pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "And my duties? The treaty negotiations that will determine peace between our peoples. Would you abandon your life's work so easily?" "For this, yes." The certainty in his voice surprised him even. Their final night together held a desperate intensity. Every touch became a memorization, every whispered word a promise neither was certain they could keep. Her skin illuminated in patterns that responded to his touch, creating a bioluminescent map of their connection. In the darkness of his quarters, they explored each other with the thoroughness of those cataloging a treasure they might never encounter again. "In my culture," Vila whispered as they lay entwined afterward, "we believe that souls who have found true resonance will echo across stars until they reunite." "Is that what we've found? Resonance?" Her only answer was to place his hand over the center of her chest, where an internal light pulsed in perfect rhythm with his heartbeat. Morning brought the Lithuanian ship, its elegant design unlike anything in Earth's fleet. The diplomatic team that arrived carried themselves with the same formal grace that Vela had demonstrated, their silver-sheen skin bearing more elaborate markings than hers, indicators of rank, Niall presumed. First emissary Natarik, their leader, addressed her in standard English, though the underlying tones suggested their native language was far more complex. "The consulate awaits your return with relief." Vila had donned the ceremonial attire they brought, transforming before Niall's eyes from her companion into something otherworldly and distant. Only her eyes, meeting his across the crowded room, remained familiar. "I require a moment," she told her delegation, before approaching Niall and Theo. Kneeling before the boy, she pressed a small crystal into his palm, a piece of the formation they had arranged together. "Remember our memory map," she said softly. "I've carried mine as well." Rising to face Niall, the professional mask slipped momentarily. "What grows between different worlds requires special tending," she said, her voice for his ears only. "I cannot promise when, but—" "I know," he interrupted, unwilling to hear goodbye. "Echo across stars." As the Lithuanian ship departed, carrying away the woman who had transformed his isolated existence, Niall felt the research station shrink back to its former dimensions, a workplace, not a home. The adaptive plants in the greenhouse seemed to sense her absence, their growth patterns subtly altered. That night, holding Theo as the boy finally gave in to tears, Niall made a decision. By morning, his application for transfer to the Diplomatic Botanical Corps was submitted, setting in motion a future neither he nor Vela could have foreseen.